Restart.
What's up, you guys? All right, we tried to do this, and my internet said, no, you can't. So now we're on.
Hopefully we're not all like pixel fuzzy all.
I keep having videos from 2 years ago pop up, and they were always pixelated. So pixelated and really fuzzy.
Funny word.
All right, you guys. So we got some snow today. We've got some Mother Nature helping us stay inside, but we've been talking to a lot of our members, and we're starting to see as this quarantine gets longer and longer, there's a bigger gap, right? There's this gap of people that are really starting to feel stuck and frustrated and down, right? So we're starting to have those lower vibrating emotions, and then there's the people that are seemingly doing fairly well most days. I don't think anyone's doing amazing every day. Mm-hmm. But we want to kind of talk to you guys about, like, if you are feeling stuck, maybe why, and then some actual things that we can do to try to get out of that unstuckness and identify, like, why we are where we are. So the title of this video is Have Your Priorities Changed? So, yeah.
So I think, I think the part that we're seeing as kind of a constant, kind of a consistency is, and it pertains back to the needs, that we're going to reference this, I think, till we're blue in the face. So the more you understand your needs, the more you're probably going to be able to adjust yourself going through here, right? Like if you're feeling a lot of restriction as you're going through your day-to-day, it's probably because your need for certainty is probably one of your top needs, right? And I think, if we're unaware of that and we're basically trying to do the same old thing that we've done for years and years and years, for the last 6 weeks, that's been challenged, right? And so I think as this goes on, if we're finding ourselves where we're not allowing ourselves to expand and maybe look at things from a different lens, we're probably going to just continue piling dirt on top of ourselves and just adding more and more to our plate. And so the reason why we want to talk about priorities, and I think oftentimes when we're talking about priorities of like, no, you got to get your priorities straight. You got to like all those things. But it's coming from a place of reality of, for most of us, especially as parents, especially as homeowners, business owners, whatever it may be, we're having to wear a lot of hats right now. We just got a lot of different things kind of piled on top of our plate, right? Like if you're a parent, not only are you now having to, be a good role model, be a good example for your kids, make sure that they're bathed, make sure that they're taken care of, make sure that they're fed. Now, all of a sudden, we're having to be the teachers. We're having to be the coaches. We're having to be their friends. We're having to be, their crafts person. We're having to be anything and everything we're having to, like, that happens with our kids throughout the day. We are now having to, ride that out with them. Not to mention, I know for our girls, at least they're 6 and 4, so they're able to at least get a lot of their own connection and love from each other. But for them, that you can see that they got a lot of their connection and love with their friends and their interactions from their daily classmates and teachers. Now that's not available to them, right? Like they do a Zoom thing every now and then, but like they're 6 and 4, so their attention span like goes out the window in a matter of like 4 seconds. But like we've been able to do the kids class and doing those kind of things, and they do get a 30-minute interaction 3 days a week with the other kids and doing that kind of stuff. But still, as a parent, we are still having to wear the hat of like making sure that they are getting attention, making sure they're doing those things. Not to mention we're still working 18 hours a day, right? Like there's a lot of things that we're all of a sudden having to take on as parents, as if you're working from home, if you're doing all these kind of things, and if you're being basically same thing of I need to wear the same hat that I've always worn for the last 15 years. We're probably running into some reality problems, right? And so it's the reason why we would talk about this is being able to be clear of what's your priorities right now, right? Like, okay, on a movement standpoint, if your movement priority was at 5 o'clock every single day, I would go to the gym, I would work out for 60 to 90 minutes, and I would do that. But now all of a sudden, your kids are requiring time at 5 o'clock. The reality of your priority has probably conflicted of what your prior priority was. And so you need to be able to, yet again, flow and adjust these things, because if your priority of movement was always there prior to this, and all of a sudden now there's a time confliction, I've heard the part that I think we're running into with some of our clients on there is, well, no, I've always worked out at 5:00. I can't work out at any other time if it's not 5:00.
And not in my house.
Yes, and not in my house. And it's like, well, yet again, like we've gotten the notice that April 30th we can open our doors back up. We are hoping that does we haven't gotten notice, but like that was what we were told initially. Okay, I'll go by that.
I was like, what? That's awesome.
We haven't gotten the visual notice that we can do that. So I'm gonna go by the hope that that's the reality of the scenario. But at the same time, I do have in the back of my head that perhaps this could last longer, right? Like who knows? We may go back to doing things, and all of a sudden this thing goes wildfire again and goes back through, and we're shut down for another 8 weeks. Who knows, right? And so for a lot of you guys, if you're holding yourself and tucking your head in the sand and praying that, once this passes, I'll just go back to my normal life, we don't know that's going to happen. So the only thing that we can do is really come from a place of reality of what is our current scenario and how can we see our priorities for what they really are, right? Like, yet again, I know our girls take precedent over what we normally did, right? Like, we need to schedule out time better. We need to rearrange our day better so Carson gets the action she gets, that Skylar gets the attention, the interaction that she needs throughout the day. And if we don't do that properly, you guys, I know we are going to end up putting ourselves on the back burner. I know for a lot of the moms out there, right? Like if you're a mom, I've seen this more than anything. Moms tend to take on more than anything. I will fully admit that. Like Courtney runs our household, right? As much as I want to say from an ego male masculinity aspect of like gung-ho, I run the house, like everything runs through mom, all right? So I think what I've seen is a lot of moms tend to put themselves on the back burner, and I'll let Courtney talk a bit more about that. But I think for a lot of moms, we tend to put they tend to put themselves on the back burner and, come from the place of, what? I'm going to run the house. I'm going to cook the dinners. I'm going to make sure all the kids' homework is done. I'm going to make sure they see all the videos. I'm going to read with them. I'm going to play games with them. I'm going to create craft time with them. I'm going to do all of these things. And then maybe I'll take care of myself. And what we've been talking about this entire time, you guys, is you can't pour from an empty cup. You can try to let your ego drive it. And yet again, ego, I'm not saying coming from necessarily a judgmental place, but when we're piling on, even though we don't know it's a good thing for us, that's ego driving the show. Okay. And so when we're coming from that standpoint, oftentimes you guys I'm just going to go, I'm going to be that role model. I'm going to be this thing for my kids. I'm going to put myself on the back burner. If you're doing that and over the duration of time, you guys, sooner or later that cup is going to be dry and you can't pour from that anymore. That was a long one. I'm sorry.
That was 8 minutes solid, you guys. All right.
Like 7.
So, I think what Brandon's saying, and I think the biggest part to look at this right now is like, what was your life like pre-shutdown? And then what is it now? And if you're trying to hold on to, like he said, if you're trying to hold on to what you had and like this was what you were doing, it's not going to work. And I think the biggest shift that we've had in the last couple of years was getting out of hustle and getting out of like people pleasing and perfectionism and overgiving. And like, if you're any of those things, we get it, right? And so like when you're in that hustle mode, it's really hard to like go with the flow, right? It's really hard to be in flow and go, okay, well, this is life today. This is life tomorrow. Like the truth of the matter is, you guys, we don't know what life is going to look like in a day, 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, right? Like sometimes it's hour by hour. And I can tell you guys, when the gym got shut down, had we been in the place we were a couple years ago, it would have been a disaster, right? It would have been like a total, we would have been yelling at each other, we would have been yelling at our kids, we would have been freaking out, like it would not have gone well. But the thing we've learned the most for ourselves is that like to go faster and to go farther in life, we actually had to learn how to flow. And once we learned how to find that flow, life got a lot easier, right? And am I saying it's easy right now? No, it's not, right? But like, if the version of you is like, my house has to be perfect, I have to do all the things with the kids exactly like it's supposed to be done, and I've got to run my business, do my job, take care of my husband, you're going to be in a ton of overwhelm, and this is going to feel really stressful and really heavy, right? And so what we want to say to you guys is your self-care has to be top priority. Okay. And I get it. Like we want to take care of our kids. We want to do all that. But if you're not taking care of yourself and the things, especially if you were doing them before, right? If before you were getting up and you had a morning routine and you were meditating and you were going to the gym and you were feeding yourself healthy foods and you were doing all those things, and now all of a sudden you're not, like you're going to be in a different place physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, right? And like, I know for me, I get in that too sometimes where I'm not doing enough of that. And then guess what? I'm snappy. I'm not supportive. I'm not as loving. Like everything starts to fall apart. And so what you've got to understand is like, okay, maybe your schedule has changed, but you still need a schedule and you still need to prioritize your self-care, right? Whether that's working out, whether that's eating right, whether that's meditating, whether it's all of those things, you have to prioritize those things. And you get to ask for help, right? You get to ask for help. You get to say, hey, I need you to do this. Hey, I've got to go do that. Like yesterday, I spent 9 hours doing taxes. I couldn't help Carson with her homework. And I had to say, hey, babe, I need you to make sure that you do this with Carson. You get to reach out to your friends. You get to reach out and say, I need some support right now, right? You get to reach out to your coaches. You get to reach out to us, right? Like it's okay to accept that you are not perfect. This is not going to be perfect. It's all still going to be okay, right? Like you have to go into this, you guys, with the understanding that like everything is going to be okay. But if you go back to your old habit of taking on and putting everyone else first, when this is over, you're going to continue to do that, okay? If you are in hustle, if you're doing that, like it's not all of a sudden like going to go back and you're going to be like, oh yeah, I'm going to totally take care of myself right now. Like you have to prioritize self-care. And like we're gonna do an episode on relationships, but you get to also support your spouse and your wife or your husband or your girlfriend, your boyfriend, whatever, in that for themselves and for your children, right? Like we very often to each other, it's like, hey, I need to go work out. Is this okay, right? Like it's not that we're asking each other permission, but we support each other in that, and we both also say like, hey, you've been at your desk for 9 hours. Let's go on a walk, right? Or hey, you're kind of snappy. You should probably go down and take class, like. But you need to look at what's going on instead of just being like, I'm just going to get through this, right? Because all of this energy and tension that you're carrying right now, if we don't actually go inward and look at it and take care of ourselves, it's just going to continue. And then this whole year is going to kind of not go the way you wanted it to because you let this scenario dictate how you felt instead of you looking inward and shifting the way you feel so that you can create the life that you want. That was a lot.
Bounce back point.
Yeah.
So one other thing I think is important, you guys, and this one goes out to yet again the moms out there. Obviously don't know your relationship status, don't know any of those things, but I would, from a male perspective, from my own perspective, yet again, when you're right now, our kids. Yet I know my kids don't always act like they're listening, but they are always watching, right? Like they're always seeing how we respond to certain things. They are always seeing how we interact. They always get to see how our relationship goes. And especially now that we are in closer confined quarters with each other 24/7, there's a lot of input and a lot of modeling that they are going to take on from this point. And so if you are that woman and you are that mom that is just like, you know what, I'm going to take on everything. Honey, you go over there and sit on the couch and do the work or do whatever it may be. Right now, you're also teaching your kids that's the way relationships are supposed to be. All right, so I want to just kind of let that, the way that the way our kids are seeing that and the way that we are interacting with each other, right? Like if I dumped everything on Courtney's lap and didn't allow her to go take care of herself, didn't allow her to go for, like yesterday we went out for a family walk because she needed it, right? Like she spent 10 hours working on our business stuff, taxes, all the other stuff on there, and we went for a walk so she can get out of the house. And then I took on the aspect of balancing our relationship. She did that side. I coached classes and she could still work out. I worked out earlier, right? Like we've learned over doing this of being together for 10 years and running a business after being together for 4 months, right? Like we've learned to be able to bounce things off. Like I know for me initially coming from a masculine role, like we haven't talked about masculine and feminine energy, but it's being able to understand where we're both at. And especially in this moment in time, you guys, where there's a lot of uncertainty that's going around, it's very easy for both of us to get into masculine energy. And that's where we can start to see some confliction going on because those are two positive energies kind of clashing together. And so in order for a relationship to work, to be harmonious, to have passion, to have congruency there with it, we need to be able to both understand that she needs to be able to have masculine energy at time of going and get shit done. I need to have the same thing, but we also need to be able to feed off of each other. And so what I want to...
Can I say something about that? So if you are that woman, because I was that woman that like, I can take everything on, I can do everything, I'm an overachiever, I'm a perfectionist, like you're in your masculine energy and if you're that person right now that's like, God, I wish my husband would do whatever. You're not allowing them to do that. you are actually not allowing them to do that because you're showing up in this energy that's way too dominant, right? And like, you have to learn to receive. And guess what? Maybe they don't do the homework the way you wanted them to do it with your kid. That's okay, right? Like, and like for yesterday, the old me would have been like, no, babe, it's okay. I've been working since 6 a.m. I'm still going to coach class. And I wouldn't have received his offer of help. So you've got to pay attention to like, what are you doing? And if you are that woman, like, what's your responsibility in this? So you have to be able to ask for help and then receive it once you ask for it, right? Because if you're like, gosh, I wish that this person in my life would do X, Y, Z, but you don't ever let them help you and you can't receive the help, then you're like, I'm not gonna say it's your fault, but like, it's on how you're showing up in that relationship. It's okay, Nate. Nate's on the top of every live. We're a little early today too.
Yeah. So I mean, with that, you guys, with it yet again, for all the moms, all the women out there, for whatever your relationship is, I would highly encourage you to yet again let your partner help you out in these things. Let your kids see what a relationship of being able to have balance looks like amongst that, because yet again, if that's your modeling of the way that a relationship is, that mom should take care of everything, they should cook, they should clean, they should run a house, they should do all these things, and you may be finding yourself in this turmoil time of like, why the hell do I have to do these things? You probably learned it from your parents that learned it from their parents, right? Like, we just carry on down generations of what we do from the people that influence us the most. So I think, yet again, coming from a different perspective and seeing where your priorities at and what's the reality of the scenario we're in can really give you a bigger idea of what we're doing and how we can reorganize. Because yet again, if you're living by the statute of my life is concrete, it can never change, I like the way it was being the big word there, and now maybe because your priorities have had to take precedent over the things that was once upon a time, that yet again, and I would highly recommend you guys to avoid the statement of like, this is my new norm, right? Like, this is my normal right now, and this is the way it's going to be forever. Like, no, this is temporary, right? Like, you don't have to be a history buff to look back at history throughout time. There's always been something come up in our human evolution that's come up, right? Like 100 years ago, something came up. The plagues come up, like different things has come up, and they've also passed over time. And so understanding that this too will pass, but for perhaps right now, maybe we just have to be realistic with what your priorities are. Maybe they can't align with what they once were 6 weeks ago, but that doesn't mean that they can't shift back to where they are. Just right now, maybe we need to adjust and expand the reality of what the scenario is, and maybe just readjust to how you go about still meeting your needs and still filling your cup on a day-to-day basis.
Well, and I think the last thing, you guys, is understand that like, self-care is not selfish.
Yep.
Right? Like, taking care of yourself, taking a minute and saying, I gotta go do this, I gotta go breathe, I gotta go meditate, I gotta go do something, I need to get away. We jokingly have a, like, if we're feeling overwhelmed or we just like need a break, we're like, banana pancakes, I need some banana pancakes, right? Like, that's our safe word. And we say it jokingly, but like, sometimes we say it of like, oh boy, like they're on, the kids are, we come in and do these videos. You guys should see our house when we're done. There are Barbies everywhere. There is like, it's just how it is. But like, just understand that self-care isn't selfish, and that movement can be one of the best things right now that you can do for yourself. Not to punish yourself, not I know what I should do, I'm just not doing it. But like, just allow yourself to move your body, to show yourself some love, take a bubble bath, go read a book, meditate, join me for breath work. Like, I promise you, and it's funny because my morning routine has been not as amazing as it usually is because my brain's in work mode. But I'll tell you what, on Saturdays, I do breath work and then I coach breath work, and everything feels better on those days. So like, just give yourself a chance, create 20 minutes in your day that can be just for you, and see how much better you feel. All right, guys, we're obviously very passionate about this, so we appreciate you guys. We're on here early. We're kind of proud of ourselves. So if you have other questions about movement, if you want to join us for some live workouts, if you got kids that need to work out, want to work out, need to work out, get to work out, whatever those words are, let us know. All of this is still rolling. We're going to roll it through. Like, if you don't live close to us and you want to work out with us and you want to join us now, when we go back to the gym, we're going to keep this going, right? So if you're like, well, it'd be awesome, but I don't want to just work out with you guys for 2 weeks and then never get to work out again, we're going to keep that going. All the virtual stuff is going to keep rocking and rolling because we've seen a need for it. So, just let us know how we can support you, and we hope you guys are having an awesome Thursday, and we'll chat with you tomorrow.
One thing real quick, you guys, I would be curious because obviously we haven't talked about a lot of relationship stuff. How did this hit home for you? How is that topic? How is that would you be interested in, discussing more of that just to kind of see how we can help with those things? Because we've been through a lot. Like we've gone through a lot of different, learning and growing on our for both of us over the last 10 years of being able to understand each other and understand ourselves a lot more. And, was any of those topics of, the energy living into relationship wise, how did that settle with you guys and how did that hit for you guys? I'd just be interested to kind of hear some feedback on that. So
awesome. All right, guys. Thanks so much. We'll see you tomorrow.